This time we're going to take a look at what actually makes these 3D objects we're creating. What do they consist of? Okay, so I'm going to take a simple box, just left clicking and drag it out like this. Okay, and I'm going to hit F4 to give it some wireframe overlay. Okay, or edged faces as it's called. All right. So at the minute, whenever I say what makes this up, what do I actually mean by that? Well, it's got corners, it's got edges, and it's got flat surfaces. Okay, and for us to be able to model this into something more complex than a box, we need to be able to manipulate these corners, edges, and polygons. Okay, these corners are called vertices, edges, and polygons. Okay, so if we take a look at the command panel here, there's nothing here that lets us edit that at all, apart from maybe, you know, adding in length segments, width segments, all the rest, adjusting the height, you know, but there's not much we can do with that at present. So what we do is we add another modifier called edit poly. Okay, now here's a little tip actually. Usually when I'm modeling, when you start 3ds Max up, you'll see it something with a thin column on the right. I usually pull that open to get 2 or maybe even 3. Okay, now you'll see a hell of a lot more controls here now in this edit poly modifier, and remember when I come down to box, we're back to these. Okay, so go up to the edit poly. So these will also change depending on what mode you have the edit poly in, and we've got 5 modes here: vertex, edge, border, polygon, and element. We're just going to concern ourselves with vertex, edge, and polygon at the minute, and we can jump into those modes or sub-objects as they're called using the keyboard shortcuts. 1 brings us into vertex, 2 brings us into edge mode, and 4 brings us into polygon. So they're really 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but we only need 1, 2, and 3 at the minute. Okay, so if I come back to edge, we can also just click on them here as well. Or sorry, if I come back into vertex and select one of these and get my move tool, I can now move these about. Okay, so we're now editing the box, the constituent parts of the box. Okay, let's take an edge here and move it. Okay, so you can see sometimes when you move things get a bit messed up. So there are very particular ways of moving and modeling things, do's and don'ts, that will stop that happening, but I'm not going to explain them all because this video would be 3 days long. Okay, so we can also rotate these, and you saw just for a wee minute there what I was talking about in the last lesson with the quad menu. Okay, a lot of the commands that you see here are available here. Okay, there's also other places to get them as well. You can just use straight keyboard shortcuts if you want to learn them all. I don't. Okay, so I just use the buttons on the menus, and when you're used to them, you get quite fast at it. Okay, so this is edge and polygon. You see when I click on one, it turns it red. Okay, just rotating it there, just Control Z to undo. Okay, right, so that's all very nice, but we're still not doing very much modeling here. Okay, so let's take this polygon and just move it down a bit. I'll maybe straighten it up here a little as well. Okay, move it back so it's basically a rectangle. Okay, I'm going to turn this into a really simple house. Okay, so I'm going to pick 2 edges that run parallel to each other. If I hit F3, you can see the edges I've got selected here. I'm just going to hit connect just up here. Click. And what that does is it lets us edit the geometry and have an angle. It creates two polygons out of one and lets us edit these. You can see these are now two polygons. Okay. What we could also do here is build a little extension out. Okay, I'm going to use connect again, and this time I'm going to just drag a box like this. Oh, I meant to be on edge actually. Drag a box like that. Okay. So we've got all the edges around there selected. And I'm going to go over to connect, but instead of just hitting connect here, I'm going to hit this little settings box here. And it brings up this little flyout. Okay. Now we can do things here like slide where we want this connection to be. We've got pinch, which won't do anything until we tell it we want two connections, and then pinch will bring those together or further apart, and we can also slide them like this. Okay, and we can put our segments way up. A rule of thumb in 3D is never add more geometry than you need. Okay, never put detail like these new edges in more than you need. Keep things as simple as possible always. Okay, just going to reset these, and I only want this here and here. I don't want it over here. So what I can do is hold down Alt and get rid of that selection there, because it hasn't actually cut it yet until we hit the little check mark here. So now we've only got this connection running down the front. We'll call this the front of the house. I'm going to hit OK. And you can see now it has done the cut. Okay. So we're creating more polygons here. Hitting 2 to go into edge mode. We're creating more edges. We can hold Control to select more edges, and we can hold Alt to deselect. Okay, so we could really call this adding to the selection when we hold Control, and Alt is taken away from the selection. Okay, so let's just pick these polygons here. What I'm going to do now is use this function called extrude. I'm not going to hit the word or the button extrude. I'm going to hit the sentence. Okay, and I'm going to click and drag here and just move this out and just hit OK. Now, yep, doesn't look much like a house, so let's fix that. You can notice I've got these two polygons selected here. I'm just going to drag them down so that they sit nicely on the ground. Something like that. Okay. Now, I'm going to jump into vertex mode. And what I'm going to do now is called target weld. Okay. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to do this collapse. So I'm going to pick these two vertices and hit collapse. And then I'm going to pick these two and hit collapse. And there we have something a little bit more house shaped. Okay, now let's say we want a door here. No, let's say we want a window here. How would we do that? Let's go to Polygon. In fact, I'll put a window there and there at the same time. So those two polygons are selected. I'm going to go to Inset. I'm going to create something roughly window sized and hit OK. Now they're a bit of an odd position here, so we can just take them and drag them up. We can also scale them out And you'll remember in the last lesson I told you not to do this until you really know what you're doing. But this is one of the occasions where you can use this. Whenever you're in one of these sub-object modes, using this non-uniform scale, as it's called, is fine. It's only when you're not in one of these modes, when you're scaling the whole object, that you really want to not do that. So I'm going to cut holes for the windows here. So it's just a matter of selecting the polygon, delete on the keyboard. Okay. Now there are tons and tons of ways to do stuff in 3D, to do the same thing different ways. There's no right, there's no wrong, as long as the result's good. Okay. So let's cut a hole for the door using a different method here. So I've got the polygon selected here. I'm just gonna click cut. I'm just gonna go cut, 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 cut. Then I'm gonna select that polygon and hit delete. And you'll notice that is not as neat as using the inset, but we can tidy it up a little. Scale. Okay. So there's a little house. Let's do something like add a chimney. Alright. So this time I'm going to create a new object. And this is going to be the chimney stack, about that size. I'm going to hit F3 to wireframe it. I'm going to go to top view and I'm going to position this about here and rotate it. Right, now you'll notice I'm trying to rotate it 90 degrees, which is a quarter turn, but I can't seem to get it exactly right. So let's just undo that. One way around this is to use the angle snap toggle up here. So I'm going to click now and you'll see it snaps to 5-degree increments, and we can change that just by right clicking on this. I'll show you that again. So right click there. We can change that angle to, say, if we want to be a bit more coarse, we can change it to 30 degrees, and now it snaps like this, and that's incredibly useful. That also works for scale as well. Okay, scale is in percent, angle is in degrees. Okay, and we can turn that on and off just by left clicking on it. Okay, so this is sitting on the ground. So what I want to do is just hit F3 and bring it up to somewhere like there. Okay, we'll need a couple of chimney pots now. I'm just going to hit P for perspective view. You'll notice the view changed slightly. Well, a bit more than slightly. Okay, this time I'm going to create a cylinder, but I want to draw them directly on this surface here. That's quite easy to do. All we have to do is turn on auto grid here and come over and drag out a little chimney pot. I'm going to create another one of it by holding down shift. Okay, I'm going to click and drag in the y-axis like that. I'm going to choose copy. Now I'll do a quick explanation of what the differences between these two are, copy and instance here. Okay, let's forget about reference. So let's choose copy. So when we choose copy, we get obviously a copy of the object. Okay, if we come into this object and adjust its radius, the other cylinder is completely independent. I'm just going to undo that. Okay, of its copy. Okay, any changes we make will not be applied to the other one, and that might be what you want, but let's just delete that one. This time I'm going to shift drag it again, and this time I'll choose instance and hit OK. And now when I change one, the other one changes automatically. It doesn't matter which one you choose. Okay, I could even come here and let's say put taper on this, on the modifier, okay, and the other instance gets the chimney pot too. Okay. What else can we do here? I think that'll do for this lesson. So what we covered there was sub-objects, vertex, edge, and polygon. We covered collapsing vertices. We covered connecting edges, cutting holes and polygons, moving and scaling the polygons. Quite a bit there, but enough to let you see how to build something simple like this house. Okay, so that'll do us for this.